There ain't nobody that can sing like me. Way over yonder in the minor key. Guess what, y'all? You can sing like me with this step by step guide right here on my YouTube channel. I'm telling you all the best tricks and trades to feel like you're actually helping the teenagers in your classroom. Look, y'all, the American public schools are measuring all the wrong things. We're measuring all the wrong things. Read one article about the state of the modern teenager. We're talking about depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, cell phone addiction, drug addiction, killing each other in their cars. Hey, again, always the caveat emptor here. I'm down in South Central New Mexico. I've been here 20 years working with teenagers. You might be somewhere where these are not your problems. Let's think about the way that English is taught. Number one, the thing to remember about language arts and English is it's very repetitive. In the first grade, they're learning metaphor. In the first grade, they're learning the things that we keep on repeating as English teachers again and again and again. We just keep on repeating the exact same stuff. We just changed the literature, right? Oh, it's a different book. Oh, it's British lit. It's American lit. It's rarely ever South African lit. But we just keep on changing the literature, but we don't change the techniques. It's sentence writing. It's paragraphs for high school. It's this kind of thing. You know, math at least gets to change up. Geometry is very different than algebra, is very different than statistics. But English class, it's just the same thing over and over. By the time that I'm getting students as seniors, they're just done. They're burned out. They've given up on literature, given up on poetry for sure, and they're just done with it. So everything about my techniques that I've been developing over the last 20 years, everything about my techniques is about greeting students from the beating heart of literature and about trying to give them some tools for survival so they might actually be able to survive and live healthy lives. You know, now if you feel like you don't want to risk doing some of these techniques in your classroom for your students, guess what's going on down the hall? They're getting all the regular stuff down the hall. Your peers are not on the edge of the heart. Your peers are doing what they're supposed to pedagogically, which is the essays and the hey multiple choice and the answer these questions about comprehension. So 1 year when they have you, it might be all right for you to actually give them some tips and tools for them to survive. Now you might be like, whoa, 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 and you might be angry at me already. But keep in mind, y'all, if you're finding fault with what I'm saying and you're irritated at me, as you know, there's probably something going on in your own mind and body that you don't like, and you're projecting your anger onto me. So that's fine. Maybe you need to do some work first before you start attacking me. Now, hey, look, a lot of what we traditionally do in English class, it's like this stuff. How to read literature like a professor. How many of your students do become English professors? Half of my students statistically don't go to college, don't finish college. So I know those students aren't becoming English professors. So why am I teaching them over and over for the 12th year in a row how to read like an English professor when what I really want to teach them, I care about their humanity. I want them to be okay humans. I want them to look up from their phone every once in a while and just let their thoughts. I don't need them on sleeping pills at night to go to bed. I don't need them having suicidal ideations. I want them to be okay with the thoughts in their head, because here's the thing about thoughts, it's never somebody else's. What students these days need to learn how to do is to love, how to investigate their own feelings, how to be with their own feelings, how to express themselves and feel able to do that in a very safe way. So tell me something practical. Tell me something practical. All right. So one of the books I'm teaching right now, Jimmy Santiago Baca, New Mexican, born in New Mexico, Santa Fe, 1952. Jimmy Santiago Baca, I'm teaching this epic poem. No, the Iliad and the Odyssey ain't the only epic poem out there. There's some literature happening these days. When I walk through that door, I got a class set of these. How did I get it? I wrote a grant. I wrote a grant during the time of my life when I was abusing drugs and alcohol. So if I could figure out even being wasted at night, blacking out every single night, if I could come in and write a grant to get a class set, pretty sure you can do that too. If you can't find money at your school to buy a class set, there are lots of grants out there. I'm now clean and sober, thinking even straighter, thinking even more for my students now, thinking even less about myself and what my buzz needs are. So how am I teaching this book? Now, you big fans of my videos. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Y'all know that I like to memorize literature, and repeat it to them. But to memorize an epic poem might do some disservice to the poem. Why? Because a poem is artwork on the page. Remember day one of poetry school, that every poem, before you even read one word, is a shape on the page, a piece of art on the page. So for example, when we look at this first page, look how those lines are broken. Look how we're using some what we call the spatial line break techniques. So a lot of what I do here is I do some pre-reading stuff, and then I hand the book out to them. Each kid's got a book, and I say, turn to page 3, and I tell them, we're going to do something really different here. I'm going to let you just let this poem into your heart. I'm going to let you let this poem into your heart. I'm not going to abuse you and kill this piece of poetry with composition questions. I'm not going to kill it with you having to write an essay. I'm going to do different than you've ever been done before, out of respect for your health and mine. And more importantly, to let Jimmy Santiago Baca share his thoughts the way that he intended it. No poet ever sat out to torture teenagers. If teenagers are being tortured by poetry, whose fault is that? Never the poet's fault. So I just say, look, we're gonna let this into your heart. That's all I ask you. Be open to this. Put your phones away, phones down. Open up your book. Let this into your heart. And then I read it to them, and they can follow along. I try to read it as best I can. Now, this book, thank goodness, we live in a legally bilingual state. What a blessing. New Mexico, a bilingual state by law. And this has got some Spanish in it. So when I have some student volunteers to read the Spanish, it's a beautiful thing. So I'm reading the English, and then when we get to these Spanish parts, I've got some teenagers that are speaking Spanish, and they read the Spanish just so beautifully and so quickly. You know how real Spanish speakers are going so fast, a lot faster than Duolingo. All right. So those are great. Sometimes I have to read the Spanish. I do the best I can. I give them a trigger warning. There's some rape up in here. There's some murder up in here. I do give them a trigger warning, give them the opportunity to leave the classroom during this first section, no penalty to their grade. Now, where am I going with this? A lot of y'all are like, oh, hey, don't you get in trouble for not having them write? Yeah, we write. Okay, so check it. Here's what happens. And just got a couple more minutes with you. Thank you for your patience. I know this is a lot. It's blowing your mind wide open. All right, so we read 20 pages. I read to them, they're following along. And then I say, now have some free time. Please have 5 minutes to yourself, now 8 minutes to yourself to get on your phone, do what you want. The next day they come back. I say, open up your books. And I show them 3 things, 3 form and technique concepts. 3 form and technique concepts. Concept number 1, what we call in the poetry world, the spatial line breaks. Notice here, we're hugging that left margin. Nothing magical about the left margin, peeps. Notice how during the death of the main character, the epic hero's husband, the lines start going crazy way over here. I explain how line breaks and spacing is a way that the poet controls the reader's pace down the page in the same way that a conductor might control the tempo of the orchestra. And so here I'm teaching them some literary concepts. Number 1, spatial line breaks. And here's an example right here. Number 2, I talk to them about repetition, because there's this one passage that keeps on getting repeated in this book a bunch. The stones and dirt witness, the stones ask, the stones take, the stones tell, lay on us. We will absorb your sadness. Look at that, I already got it memorized. Why do I have it memorized? Because it comes like 15, 20 times in this epic poem. So we talk about repetition. Repetition is a huge tool for poets. It's why you enjoy choruses in songs. Now, you don't like it when your mama says take out the trash 100 times, but repetition in poetry is a winner. Now, what else do I show them? We talk about one more concept. We talk about this idea of being bilingual. We talk about how amazing and brilliant that is. We talk about how every sound that we say in our mouths is like a tone or a color. And if we just stick with one color, that would be like a painter. If we just stick with one language in our writing, that would be like a painter only using blue. And when we start opening up our minds and hearts to all the languages of the world, think about all the colors and just sounds we get. Just think about all the sounds we're letting in and all the different colors and flavors we're letting in. It doesn't matter that you can't speak a language, because you can get pleasure out of any language based on the sounds in the same way that we enjoy instrumental music, in the same way that we might enjoy abstract painting. So this idea that we must know a language to get pleasure, bunk, and tap it out, knock it out. So so now I've introduced 3 form and technique literary concepts, high-end stuff: spatial line breaks, repetition, and bilingual nature of this epic poem that we're reading about, all about an asylum seeker who gets swept into the system. Right here in El Paso, gets swept into the system by ICE and the Border Patrol. All right, well then what? Well, then I have them get out notebook paper, and I have them get out their favorite writing utensil. We're not writing on the phones. Why are we writing on notebook paper? A lot of reasons. Number 1, notebook paper never insults you. Number 2, it's not quite as easy to erase. Number 3, it never disrupts you, and that's a big one, right? Because we all know what happens when we spend any time on our phone. Here's the thing about phones: the entire thing is clickbait. Every single element of it is clickbait. So when we're on our phone, it's just constant interruption. So one thing about the paper, probably my favorite thing, is it doesn't ever interrupt you. So now they've got paper and pen out. What are we doing? What are we doing? Are we answering these 3 composition questions? Are we copying down some vocabulary words for a vocab test? No, we're not. What we're doing is we're going to do some creative writing here, and you're going to end up using these 3 form and techniques that I just shared with you: spatial, line breaks, you're going to play. You're going to experiment and play, and you're going to have some fun. Spatial, line breaks, repetition, and bilingual. Oh, mister, I don't speak 2 languages. That's all right. You can use slang, or you can use text language as your alternative language. So there you go. We just handled that problem. Or, hey, maybe you do get out your phone. Oh, look at this. We're a little Ouroboros circling around like a crazy 8. Hey, maybe you do get out your phone and you use it as a tool to get a Spanish word or a Hungarian word, and you just pop in some Hungarian because your phone does have access to all those different languages. So there you go. Look, I'm already sidestepping myself about this no phone thing. Well, that's just how it works. All right, so check it, y'all. So then, like, some students are going to be like, yo, but mister, what do we write? You told us like what form, and you told us some of these techniques, but what do we write? Number 1, I'll say like, hey, I want you to write whatever you want. Please be free. Students these days need to be able to express themselves, need to feel love, need to have interest, need to just go, need to be up in their thoughts. Write what's up in your thoughts, man. Your thoughts are always going faster than you can say them, and they're always going faster than you can write them. So why don't you just try to just chase them a little bit and write down every one that you can see? Well, still, there's going to be a handful of students that don't like that. Well, for those handful of students that want more guidance, give them some more guidance. Give them a little prompt. There's 1,000 books out there with poetry prompts in there. Give them a little prompt. I think the one I gave the other day was, all right, here's one: write nothing but questions in the technique of Pablo Neruda's Book of Questions. You know, he's got a whole book of questions, another bilingual masterpiece, Pablo Neruda's Book of Questions. It's got funny questions, serious questions, funny questions mixed with serious questions. How about you just write nothing but questions? And then make it spatial, do some repetition, and try to include some bilingual energy. I think the other thing is we've been talking all about the borderlands, La Frontera. We've been talking all about where we're positioned in America. So I said, why don't you continue writing about your feelings with the border, your experiences on the border, and what you've noticed living in the borderlands. So then, all right, so I've got the timer set, 8 to 12 minutes. We got the timer set. I'm writing too. The students know I'm writing. Am I writing gold every period? No. Because I'm a real writer. Look, real writing, y'all. Real writing, you write 1,000 lines hoping to get a good phrase. You write 1,000 lines hoping to get a decent turn of phrase, people. That's what real writing looks like. Real writing is about throwing away constantly. And you've told your students to do rough drafts, and they hate it. They don't like the rough drafts, man. But the rough drafts is a step for essays, but then also to make that connection that's just a critical and crucial part to successful creative writing. All right, so I'm almost done, y'all. Thanks so much for your time. How do I prove my point here at the end? All right, so first, they've all written. The timer goes off. Put down your pens. Y'all have all gotten 100 for participation. I'll tell them, like, look, I want you to go 3/4 of the way down the page. If they only went a quarter down the page, well, that's a less good grade. So you can give them a grade on participation. I know we need grades. We are in school. We need grades. So give them less of a grade. If they get all the way to where you told them to write on the paper, then give them 100. If they're not there, that's a 0, or whatever your policy is at your school. All right. So there is a way to do grades. I still have to have grades. All right. Then the important step, which you've heard me talk about before, you got 3 options what to do with your writing. Number 1, put it in that box. Put it in the box at the front of the room for me to give you feedback, one writer to another. I'm not going to put a grade on it. You already got a grade. If you put it in that box, you want feedback. And then I'm going to give you that feedback back in 24 hours. And we're going to have a really, really meaningful conversation at your desk before class starts. And I'm going to tell you what I liked. And I'm going to say, hey, if this were my work, here's how I might push it. If this were my piece of writing, here's some directions I might revise. I never say you're doing this wrong, you spelled this wrong, none of that. Because keep in mind, you're unique now. You're actually teaching from the heart for the heart. And they've already got that stuff everywhere else on your hallway. So it's okay for you to actually be teaching in this other method. It's all right for you not to be busting this stuff out. They're already getting this. Trust me, they've got it year after year after year. So you can put it in the box for feedback, and within 24 hours, I'll give you feedback. It's going to be mostly positive. Number 2, you can throw it away. You can throw it away. I will not root through that trash to find it. Throw it away. Why? I'm teaching a process. Why? Because all good writing doesn't happen just because you write it. This is a process. Nothing's precious. This isn't a bunch of preciousness. Every time you sat down to write isn't precious. Wad it up, throw it away. Option 3, keep it forever. Put it in a shoebox under your bed. Put it in a shoebox under your bed and pull it out when you're 35 and you have a laugh about the fun stuff, or you have a tear of the fun stuff you did. Hey, here's one more concept to leave you with today. Thank you so much. Well, hey, first of all, look, I'm trying to retire early. Hit subscribe. Tell all your teacher friends. Go to Amazon.com. Buy my poetry books. Go to poetstaley.com. Read my poems on there. Publishing all the time. Got my 4th book, manuscript in progress. I'm working on it every night. Working on it all the time. Writing poetry left and right. Teaching poetry. And is it the dream? I don't know. So a final thought to think about is about the teaching English, the teaching of literature. Look, this is not a math problem. In math class, they have an equal sign, and then they have the answer. And English teachers get swept into this concept that we're going for that answer over there. That's not the point of literature. That's not the point of literature, because what ends up happening is the students just memorize whatever the teacher says that the literature equals. What the point of literature is that equal sign. The point of literature is that you could hope, if you've done your job right with the heart, for the heart, if you've done your job right, then maybe each kid will attempt in their own way to try to make some meaning. But students if you tell them what it means, you are bypassing their ability to insert their own equal sign. It's hard. I want to tell them what I think this means every 5 minutes, and I do not. I do not tell them what I think it means. I just let them have it. I try to deliver it as best I can. I try to honor Jimmy Santiago Baca, and then we try to write in his style. Hey, thanks a lot, folks. Hit that subscribe button.